Hi everyone, and welcome back to episode 2. This week I'm going to be discussing the Jiu-Jitsu belt ranking system. Actually, belts were introduced into martial arts in about 1880 from judo, and lots of other martial arts across the world have inherited that same rating system since. So in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you want to call the sport, there are 5 basic adult belts. That's white, blue, purple, brown, and black. There's also coral and red belts and various different grades of black, coral, and red once you reach that level to show continued mastery and years spent practicing the sport. Of the 5 basic belts, the place where I train, there are a couple of different ways to get promoted. The first way is to go to a competition, finish on the podium, competing against people of the same belt color in the same weight class, or having completed a syllabus of techniques, and then you can test out by demonstrating that you have that proficiency to one of the instructors at the gym. So, as a white belt, what's it like facing people of those different belt levels? Well, fun. So, white on white, as you might expect, this is much more even. The contest is much closer. It's much more about applying the techniques that you've learned in that class and trying to submit your opponent the best you can, any way you can. Facing blue belts, of course, this is the first step up. They're much more in control. They're trying to apply specific techniques to you to submit you, and they're also much happier to let you attack and wait for that opening and then seize on that. So rather than trying to force the issue, they're going to wait and capitalize on those gaps in your technique or when you leave those openings. Facing purple belts, here the game kind of changes. It becomes much more like chess. You really get the sense that they are laying traps for you, right? They might leave what you perceive to be an opening. You move for it thinking, hey, I've got a technique for this. And then next thing you know, you're being submitted by a triangle or an armbar or something like that. You left a limb exposed and they've seized on it. So purple belts is much more, they're thinking about the game in a more structured way. They're thinking many moves ahead. Brown belts, similar to purple, but it's much more continued mastery. Here, I think there's virtually zero chance you ever throw anything at a brown belt that they haven't seen before, right? They've gone through all these techniques, they've practiced the techniques, they're very proficient, they can repeat them, they can explain them. They're always in control of the fight. Black belts, rolled against black belts a couple of times. This is really good fun and a real privilege. They are, again, always in control. It's almost like they're playing a different sport. They've got much more time. They are identifying opportunities. Often they'll use the same technique 3 or 4 times in a row because you haven't adapted to defend it quickly enough. But it's a really great way of learning very quickly as to where the weaknesses are in your technique or places to improve. So it's great fun. I will say, having rolled against people of all different belt colors, the one thing that is true across all levels is everybody understands that you are a white belt once. It was everybody's first week at this sport, and they give you the time and the space and the opportunity to learn, practice those techniques and grow, even though you get the real sense that you're doing it because they're letting you, not because you're unbelievably good at the sport. So that's it for this week. That's the Jiu-Jitsu belt rating system: white, blue, purple, brown, and then black, plus coral and red, that are there to show your progression through the sport and ultimately mastery if you one day get there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.